Lindsay Rhodes, who of course somebody who I've always wanted to. I mean, Lindsay, I love you. I don't know what to say. I just always wanted to be you.
Oh, stop it. You're the best. I'm so excited to be here. I don't think that have we ever been on the air together?
No,
ever?
It's so funny. Marissa McBride, my producer, was putting the segment together and she's like, you guys have worked like together. And I go, no. Like we'd be like high five across like at the Super Bowl. And it would just, they would never dare put us together. That would have been too much.
Yep. I'm so excited. Huge fan, Kay. Excited to be on the show. Excited for all your success. And I'm happy to be here.
I want to hear about football. Yes, let's do that. So, I mean, obviously we knew each other, NFL media. You have Fantasy Dirt going on SiriusXM and Fantasy Sports Radio.
I'm here for the tax exemption meeting that is taking place in that ballroom. I'm hoping you can tell me about all my tax exemptions that I'm allowed to do this year.
Yes. If you'd like to buy a life insurance policy, I've got those over here and tube socks over here. I can be sure to help you out. I forgot to do my eyebrows. Like I have my, Lindsay knows. It's just like, here's the makeup bag. It's just like
something's missing. I feel like I look naked. Why is it? It's that. Yes.
Yeah.
I've done that.
The lack of lighting. Anyway, Lindsay, we're going to talk about some fantasy stuff, but okay. Tell me about the show. Tell me about what you've got going on.
So SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio weekdays with Michael Fabiano. We do a show called Fantasy Dirt where we're on from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern, and we talk about all of the day's fantasy news and going through the week. And so, I'm really heavy into the fantasy space right now with my 15 teams that I set lineups for. That's not counting all of the best ball stuff. Yep. I know. Okay. It's like every year I'm kind of adding more and more and more. And you sort of have to in order to discuss drafts smartly, right? Like you just want to do all the drafts. Like, so I'm like collecting drafts during draft season. I'll do all the drafts. Sure. You want me to, and I'm in, because you're collecting all of this information and then you can talk smartly about where you can get people and where you think the value is. And then you realize you have 15 teams that you have to manage for the regular season, and waivers sucks. Tuesdays. I gotta
say, this news does not surprise me at all, because knowing what I know, and we never got to work together, but it was, can't you prepare more like Lindsay? Like you are the most prepared. Stop. You are the most prepared broadcaster. So the fact that you're like running algorithms and like high risk trades and like charts and stuff like on fantasy drafts doesn't surprise me at all, but that's why you have the good information. Before we get to it, my house was under attack by a scorpion. I understand that you've got mice. What is going on to our respective living places?
Mouse. I just want to be specific. We have mouse, like singular. It's not like an infestation here, but what, you guys, I was doing dishes in the kitchen. And so I'm like, I had been cooking. I think I stepped on it with my bare feet. And I didn't realize that I stepped on it. I thought it was just like a crumb on the ground or whatever. And I didn't even think to look back for a second because I didn't actually step on the body. But I was like, why is that there? How did it get there? We've just been hanging out downstairs in the kitchen, and there's all of a sudden a dead mouse hanging out in the middle of like a majorly trafficked walkway. I don't know. I thought it was a baby possum for half the night. And people now are like, you don't know anything about animals, because I thought it was playing dead. Because when I went to move it, Kay, it like shook. It moved. And that freaked me out quite a bit. No, so I thought it was a possum for that reason. It's not a possum. It's a mouse.
We're moving. That's it. For sale sign, my house. We're out. I don't know where we're going to go. That
was my old house. I've moved since then.
Okay. I don't know that. Congrats. Amazing. Welcome to our housewarming party.
I have not moved.
I thought you did. I was like, what? Yeah. Okay, let's talk football. Let's talk tonight. I gave my thoughts a little bit. Steelers, they face the Titans. It's a huge, really important one in the AFC, of course. Will Levis, the Rookster, getting the QB1 start. We saw the performance. What does this mean? Do you think the kid can do it again?
Well, that's the big question. I think what we saw from him in that game was what we kind of, not to downplay it, I did not see that coming. I think most people did not see that coming. In talking to draft analysts, and I'm not a quarterback evaluator myself, but like I talked to a lot of people that are, and they were less high on him. And the notes that I was getting about him when he came out for the draft felt the most to me like I'm not going to bet on that. So I was not expecting big things from him. And then when he came out and did that, I was aghast, just like everybody else. And so, yes, I'm, picking him up off the waiver wire in fantasy. Like, why not put him on my bench? Let's see how this goes. The thing is, though, when you go back and look at the tape, what he did was what we knew he could do well, which is like, we knew he had a rocket for an arm. We knew he could make those throws. His deep ball percentage was 27.6 in that game. Like a quarter of the throws that he actually threw were deep balls, which is bonkers. So I think the thing that's notable is that the Titans put him in a position, I think, to succeed. They put him in a position where they set him up to do the things that he could do well. They gave the ball to Derrick Henry quite a bit. For fantasy purposes, I actually like that. I like Will Levis in at quarterback because I don't think that they're going to start throwing the ball like crazy. I think they'll try and limit the passing volume, and that will help out Derrick Henry's value. I also think that the fact that they give him a lot of like short throws, and then they called the long ball really opportune times so that he could complete that. I love that for D-Hop, by the way, like him with his monkey D. Lufo contested catch radius. So he can go get the ball. Let's do that. Let's get the fantasy value back for D-Hop. But so I think it'll come down to whether they continue to call the game. It'll also, we're going to see teams that now have seen this tape and are like, okay, so he can do the things that we knew he could do well. Let's purposefully put him in a position to force him to do the things that we didn't think he could do well when he was coming out. And we'll see if he can check some of those boxes as well.
I hope so. I mean, I like what you're saying about the run game. D-Hop a little banged up, but me and Gronk have a parlay, and I just said 1 or more touchdowns. He just had 4 against Atlanta. He was feeling himself. You can get the ball to D-Hop for 1 touchdown at least with that catch radius that you're talking about. Okay, you know all things fantasy, so we're going to keep this going. We're going to talk some players who are at their fantasy football fork in the roads. Get it? Fork in the roads. We're going to talk about, little halfway point check-in, okay? And you're the patrol cop. Who's been the biggest surprise for you in fantasy so far this year?
So the obvious answers here, I think, are like Puka Nacua and Devon Achane, who are obviously the two that outplayed their ADP the most. But in their case, we didn't really know what to expect. So can we really be surprised when what we didn't know what to expect actually is good? Anyway, that's why I'm going with a known commodity. In his 10th year in the National Football League, on his second team, a guy we thought was probably a descending asset, it is Adam Thielen of the Carolina Panthers. Okay, this is a guy who has spent most of his career as a number 2, and number 2's team, I think, thought that they could do better than drafted a guy as his replacement that they thought was going to be an upgrade. Jordan Addison crushing it also, making him expendable. He goes to Carolina, takes over as their number 1 by default. Rookie quarterback, relatively bad offense. Like, who would have thought that he'd produce like this in that situation? He has more points per game than Amon-Ra St. Brown and CeeDee Lamb. Wow. He is wide receiver 7 with 20 points per game. He's having the best fantasy season that he's ever have. And though they talked about going out and getting a wide receiver 1 to come in and help Bryce Young's development at the deadline, the fact that they did not actually get that guy leads me to believe that this production is going to continue because they're tied to his usage, which is a very high target share and a very high air yard share. And by the way, he is the perfect example, Kay, of why we pay attention in fantasy to the preseason, because there were clues in the preseason usage, target share, air yard share specifically, when he was in with the starters or when the starters were playing, he was their guy. And so at the end of fantasy draft season, we could kind of pivot and say, like, he's going really late, and I think he might actually be a huge part of their offense. And so prioritize him in that range.
Okay, we're going to try. We only have time for one more, but we're going to try to make it 2. So I want to get who is the fantasy player through the first half of the season. Everyone wanted to succeed, but in reality, like, you're pulling your hair out week in, week out because he's not performing. You don't know why.
Okay, I'm going to go with Tony Pollard here. And it's a guy that we drafted, we thought might give us 20 points a game. Like, we were fully expecting him to be a high-end running back. RB6, ADP, early second round, hasn't gotten there yet on the high end. There have been more low-end games than we'd like at that ADP, but not so many that you know what you're getting and you can just move on and put him on your bench. Like, Najee Harris was RB10 in fantasy drafts. He's like RB39 in fantasy production, but at this point now you know what you're getting from him. His volume has started to match his efficiency. His fantasy production matches both. So you can just move on. Pollard's volume is elite. He's top 5 in expected fantasy points at the position based on his usage. So you can't bench him. You have to ride it out. Despite his middle of the road rushing yards over expectation, you have no idea what you're going to get from him on a week-to-week basis, which is kind of the Cowboys in a nutshell. Is it not?
No, it is. I mean, I'm literally going to start taking notes here. I do want to ask you one more. Okay. Do you want to go Mr. Congeniality, or do you want to know, like, who should be? Let's help people out. Who's the guy everybody wants right now? Like, who everybody's begging their commissioner, hey, let this go through, let the trade request happen. Who's going to stay hot?
I'm going Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall is a guy, he's been really good all year long. The problem is that he wasn't on the field that much early on, right? So now that Saleh has taken the handcuffs off a couple of weeks ago, he's been really, really good. 20 plus points in all of those games since week 5, when they finally decided he was healthy enough to play all the time. He's averaging just under 2 yards over expectation per attempt on the season. So every time he gets the ball, they scan the situation and they say, here's what you should get in this situation. He's getting almost 2 yards more than what the situation calls for. That's the highest number for a running back by a wide margin, also leads in yards per carry. And he's doing this on a bad offense, right? So I think he's kind of script proof, game script proof, because even if they're upside down, then they're going to just throw him the ball. He's the type of asset that can give you fantasy production under any circumstance the rest of the way, I think.
So don't sell Breece Hall. I would also just add, I would go to the Bijan Robinson owner in my league and say,
yeah,
Arthur Smith's going to make this a headache. Arthur Smith, he's no good. It isn't. I want him because I think, week 15, 16, 17, Panthers, Colts, Bears. That's all I need to know, okay? The worst, second worst, and seventh worst defenses against running backs. Please go get Bijan from whoever may have him. And thank you, Lindsay. And guys, listen to Lindsay. You guys can listen to her on Fantasy Sports Radio, Fantasy Dirt. It's weekdays from 1 to 3 Eastern on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Lindsay, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun, actually, doing some television with you.
You're the best. I hope mouses don't travel in pairs. Ugh. Oh, we've got Deebo Samuel on the show. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest Up and Adams content right on YouTube.